You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to One on One, a KC Sports Network podcast. I am your co-host, Mike DeVito, here with Big Jeff Allen, and we are bringing you all things Chiefs football from a player's perspective. Exciting, awesome win, old school, man. It reminded me of back in the day, Jeff, when we first started. But before we get into it, Cookie Society, our sponsors, Big Jeff, we're into Thanksgiving. You talked about, just give us your favorite one again.
My favorite right now is apple pie.
Apple pie.
Check us out. CookieSociety.com, Instagram at Cookie Society.
Yeah, the 12-pack starter pack. And like I said, the gear, the candles, everything top notch. Check them out. CookieSociety.com. All right, Big Jeff, that was that was an interesting game. I mean, I like it. I think it was a fun game. Really unique. You don't normally see one side of the football run the ball however many times that they did and only pass the ball 16 times
16 times. Yeah, I think he had four completions.
And then
crazy.
Yeah, and then the other side of the ball, totally opposite, right? Threw the ball whatever.
Almost 70 times. I think it was 68 or something like that. Something crazy.
That's incredible. That is absolutely – I mean, you think about 45, 50 plays, and that's a lot of plays in a game. 70 passes.
That's a lot. I think they ended up I think they fell just short of 100 plays. That's a lot of football. They're going to be sore on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, but let's harken back now to training camp and those drills that we hate doing, right? The long drives drills. Mm-hmm. You got these training camp practices that are filled with plays, right? You're doing all kinds of different periods. There's 20, 30 plays in each period. You have that really difficult conditioning test at the beginning of the week. Yeah. I mean, Andy Reid knows what he's doing. You could tell the guy. I mean, didn't seem like they looked tired to me.
No, they looked really efficient, especially in that second half. They started to figure some things out. I think physically in the first half, Tennessee came out a little bit more aggressive on both sides of the ball. They were more physical, and I have a feeling they wanted to have Coach EB, Coach Heck, Andy Reid. They all addressed it like, hey, we need to get a little bit more physical. It's not bad, but we can do better. And they came out the second half, and they showed some dominance there. I know we only rushed for 14 yards with the running backs, which is weird. But it was really physical in the pass game. But look at the film. Look at Trey Smith, man. He had some plays here and there where he had some hiccups, but he literally laid the wood all night. He was super aggressive. You didn't hear Jeffrey Simmons' name too much. He's a game wrecker. So they kind of eliminated him, and they did what they needed to do. Pat finally, at the end of the game, he decided to put the ball in his hands, and he literally took off. Yeah. I don't know, that one drive where he rushed for a touchdown, then he got the 2-point conversion rushing. And that's the definition of just the GOAT. I mean, that's what it is. He just has the X factor.
I don't know if every generation says the same thing, but we're really lucky. And as a player, I wasn't very lucky, but I was lucky to be alive and be able to witness Tom Brady's career. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, nothing has ever come close to that at any position. I mean, arguably any sport, what he's done is incredible. But now, so I got to see that. And now you get to see Pat Mahomes, who's coming up and just, again, the same thing, just this level of dominance that's just, it's otherworldly to watch him play. And, you're lucky as a football fan, lucky to get a chance to watch these guys in their prime. I mean, it's been incredible. You see Pat's name back in the MVP as an MVP, the top guy for MVP. And I think that's certainly the case. I mean, he's just, I don't know. And I've said this a million times. I don't know how as a defender you prepare for that. I mean, I don't know. So many things that you can get from Kansas City's offense, right? You can get these elaborate and abstract run games. You can get 80 pass plays. I mean, it's just, you just never know. It's so diverse. And with Pat Mahomes and the other weapons, I couldn't imagine being in a defensive room and trying to break that down. I do want to go big picture real quick though, Jeff, because I compared this year to last year. And the one thing that I really like about this year is even though some of these games have been ugly, we're winning the close games. right? We're finishing these games. If you remember last year, a lot of these games were close games, and we were losing those games.
Yeah, the difference between last year and this year is different. I mean, last year we weren't winning these tough games that were close during the regular season, and it drug on to the playoffs. We lost the AFC Championship, in a close game to the Cincinnati Bengals in the same fashion that we did in the regular season. So it's really encouraging seeing them bring out these regular season games in tight fashion. Tennessee, they figure out a way to make the game ugly. They do that against every opponent. You're kind of forced to play their style of play because they have a dominant running back. It's almost like early 90s football. They're going to come out, they're going to run the ball, play sound defense. And sometimes that's tough because you're not going to have as many possessions. This game, I know we dominated at the time of possession, but normally they're dominating it. So it was good to see us pull it out, especially a close one.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a major difference between this year and last year. And that is incredibly important. And thinking back to last year, I remember that was sort of, I think, in the back of all of our minds as we're going into the playoffs is, gosh, is that team that was sort of showing up in the middle of the season, is something like that going to rear its head at the worst time in the playoffs? And, that's what we ended up getting this year. However they've done it, and I'm not sure how. I mean, it's just the consistency over there, obviously, but they've really been able to, outside of the a couple games there, they've been able to finish some of these close games, and that's the NFL. That is the NFL. The NFL. We've talked about it. It's difficult every night. All three phases aren't going to be firing on all cylinders. You're going to have to pick it up in other areas. You're going to have tight games. You're going to have tight games against bad teams. You're going to have tight games against average teams. This is the NFL. And so, but finished, that's the mark of a true great team, is being able to finish consistently. And that's what you're really seeing Kansas City doing. Jeff, I want to look at some of the specifics. So you hinted at the offensive line. I think one thing that you hear about, it seems like every other week, the offensive line is being criticized. Like everything looked good, but the O-line didn't look good. Is there anything to that? And specific to this game, I know you said, they had to deal with some real players up there. I mean, Tennessee, those guys aren't those aren't your average guys. Talk to me about the O-line in this game specifically, and then just sort of where they're at writ large.
Man, it was a battle, man. This is one of those games where you're playing a tough front. They're going to win some, you're going to win some, but ultimately, I thought we were really physical, and I thought we played together as a unit. We didn't run the ball very much. I don't know how many carries it was, but I know we only have 14 yards with running backs. And that's kind of a weird stat with watching the film, because they were doing a good job in the run game as an offensive line. They were moving guys. They were being really physical. But ultimately, we passed the ball a bunch. And even while passing the ball, they were being physical. You see guys taking shots where they're uncovered. You saw Trey, man. Trey, he took it personal. I know Jeffrey Simmons early in the week, he was in the headlines talking about, it was an opportunity for them to dominate as a defensive line against the Chiefs group. And they all came out with an attitude from the first snap to the last snap. The second half was a lot better than the first half, but the entire game, they made sure they were physical. So that was really encouraging to see. I think what I would like to see more is just us making the attempt to run the ball more. It's kind of like Derrick Henry. He gets carry after carry, and as the game goes on, he gets into a groove. With very limited carries, it's tough to evaluate a run game. There wasn't very many carries. There wasn't very many opportunities to get anything going. So I want to judge them on the stats, but they were physical watching the film.
Right, and it's a lot harder for an offense if they're one dimensional, right? If you don't have to worry about the run game, that I know as a defensive player makes things a lot easier. You're thinking one thing and one thing only. And so establishing that run game is incredibly important. I want to read a quote here. This is from our producer, Jordan Foote. He wrote this. This is an SI or Arrowhead Report or something. But I want to read this line because I think this highlights my worry, and I will talk about the defense. But if there's nothing to worry about. But I guess if you're going to nitpick and think about concerns and things like that, listen to this quote, because I think Jordan hits it spot on. He says, "Despite the win, however, neither line, offensive or defensive line, showed up to play its best football for the Chiefs. And if they end up facing a team that's well built in the trenches come playoff time, that lack of grit could come back to bite them. And I think Jordan's right. I know Jordan's right because the playoffs is a different beast, and we talked about it last time. You have to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to run the football consistently. I mean, Jeff, you don't want to be correct me if I'm wrong, but in the middle of January, you don't want to be, having to throw the ball 80 times.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just, if possible,
it's not a sustainable way to win. You don't want Pat throwing the ball 68 times. One, for his health. For two, like you said, you become one-dimensional.
Right.
The defense gets a chance to tee off. They want to rush the passer, especially in this new league. So if they have every opportunity to do it, they're going to, rack up some stats. And I think the stats were kind of skewed. We threw the ball 68 times, and it can look worse than what it was when you're looking at the impact. Like, not even the impact, but you're looking at, maybe a guy gets a sack or a few pressures. That makes us look really bad as offensive line. We could play 90 plays, but a lot of people were ragging on Trey Smith this week. As he regressed, he played 90 freaking plays, and you can count on one hand the number of bad ones that you saw. But since we're offensive linemen, we're expected to be perfect. I know it's a part of our job description, but we all know we're like stepchildren. And I don't want to say it in an offensive way, but that's just the saying that we're treated like that sometimes. And we make mistakes too, man. It's a part of the game. They're facing a really tough group. Jeffrey Simmons in particular, he is an animal. He gave everyone trouble in the interior offensive line that game. The guy who really surprised me was Walker. That was really surprising. That's one of those things where just bad technique at times. That's a guy that you're better than, but you're probably not as amped up because it's not Simmons, and he gets you. So they'll watch the film. They'll get better from it. We got the win. I think it will serve us justice at the end of the day when we get to those games in the playoffs.
I think I had a couple of games like that in my career where everybody was worried about the 3 or 4 guys around me, and so I was able to make some play. I'm going to go on and talk about the defense, but before we do that, let's get a word from our sponsor.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I have to tell you about some of these strange tall boys of beer that you might see in the bottled water section of your favorite store. Well, it's not actually beer. It's a liquid mountain spring water company from the Alps, and it's called Liquid Death. And you might be wondering, Tucker, why is it called Liquid Death? Well, let me tell you, it's because they'll brutally murder your thirst. That's right. Not only are they going to brutally murder your thirst, they are going to brutally murder plastic pollution in the process. It's wonderful with their infinitely recyclable aluminum cans. They also donate 10% of their proceeds from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. It's great. They've got 4 flavors. They have regular sparkling water. They've got still water, which is the mountain spring water. And they have mango. They have berry flavored, and they also have the one I like here, the severed lime. I'm going to go ahead and crack it on open, and you can get a Liquid Death at your local Target, Walmart, 7-Eleven, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/KCSN. That's liquiddeath.com/KCSN.
Hey, you killed that,
Tuck. I'm trying to hold it together, man. That was a great job. That's a freaking hard commercial. There are a lot of big words in that commercial. Yeah. Damn, I'm glad that's why they didn't ask us.
I'm glad he does it and not us, right? Liquid Death is
oh man. As we're coming back, I'm like, don't laugh. Oh, great job, Tucker. Thank you for that. All right, man. Yeah, and so just to get back to the game, again, nitpicking. Listen, you're going against Derrick Henry. You got a good offensive line. They're going to give up some plays in the run game. They did give up some plays in the run game. Wasn't as bad as it could have been. What was the I'm trying to remember the last time they played with Derrick Henry was full go. They had a hell
of a game. Yeah, a hell of a game. I think defensively, I think they did a really good job. They're the ones that won that game. Offensively, we were out of sync. When you look at the stat sheet, I mean, we look like we scored 40 points. When you look at damn near 500 total yards, Pat threw for 466, rushed for 63, and then you look at the score, you're like, wait, we only got 21 points. So that was kind of a weird type of game. But defensively, I think they really did a good job. I think the unsung hero in that game was Colin Saunders. I said Sanders.
Yeah, Saunders.
He does a really good job. I mean, he brings the juice every week. that's a guy that, I mean, he's been the same guy since he's gotten there. He's getting the opportunity now. I'm really happy for him. And I would go against him in practice, and you could see the potential. And just to see him out there bringing that potential to production, and that's really cool. So I'm really happy for him. And then McDuffie, the rookie, he didn't look like a rookie out there.
No,
I see why they traded Fenton. He was like, okay, this guy's back. He's the number one cornerback. He's going to be a cornerstone. He did a really good job, even though they only threw the ball 16 times. All those reps were perfect reps. So he did a good job. And collectively, as a group, they played good team defense. They rallied in the second half. They figured out a way to get a stop when we needed it, and we won the game. What do you think?
I want to go back to Saunders, because Saunders is what the new run-stopping defensive lineman looks like. So last week with Craig Stout, we do the defensive film room, defensive breakdown with Craig and DJ. And if you go and watch that, because it was the bye week, we put on our DJ and I's highlights from when we were playing, and we broke those down. And you can see when I have to pass rush, it's just choppy and it just unathletic. It just doesn't, like, it just looks at it. Like, you can tell I'm just a run stopper. Saunders is the new version of the run stopping guy, where it's like great run technique, awesome, can take on the double teams, but at the same time can get pressure in the pass game, is quick, can flip his hips, can move. I mean, so it just, I guess I just bring that up to say the way the game has evolved. Now even your run stopping guys have to be able to pressure the quarterback. He is the perfect example of that.
He's one of the best athletes I've ever been around. I mean, I know you've seen videos of him from the Senior Bowl doing backflips. And this guy does unbelievable things in the locker room. He can dunk. He just moves like a fluid athlete. Like, I fully believe he could play tight end. That type of athlete. And just to see him be able to convert from run to pass, just the efficiency of his movement, the way he flips his hips. He chased down Willis effortlessly. Like, it was just amazing to see that. So I think he needs to see the field a little bit more, personally. I think he should be the guy right now. But hey, it's working. So
he's doing a great job. And that converting from run to pass, especially, I know Spags' scheme is more upfield, explosive off, but I'm sure I can see him even in run situations be able to do that and do it well. And it is so difficult when you're in that first and down situations and you're getting off the football, and especially if it's a play action pass or something, you're expecting run. It's an entirely different technique, obviously, and set of movements that you're doing to play the run game versus play the pass. And so it's almost like you have to play the run, recognize this pass, and then change your entire everything that you're doing. You have to get on the edge and get skinny. Whereas to start the snap, you were trying to get big and stay thick in there. So just the ability to do that, as a defensive lineman, I've always been impressed, because it's something I could never figure out. I mean, I played run through the last second.
The league is really changing from a defensive line standpoint, where guys are being able to convert a lot easier from run to pass. I know even when I was playing it, for the most part, I could jump set a guy on first or second down, and the fight was over.
I was done.
The fight was over traditionally, but now these guys are so slippery. They're so smart and athletic. Athleticism added to that it makes it a lot harder to do some of those things. And it's tough on offensive linemen, man. I know people think it's getting worse, but these D linemen are getting better. Like,
unbelievable. Oh, it's incredible, the athleticism. And talk to me about the strength, because you were obviously, the weight room was big for me. You were obviously in there a lot longer than I was, as far as time-wise in the league. Are these guys still, bench pressing 500 pounds, squatting 700 pounds, or is that stuff? No. Okay, it's totally different.
I mean, you got maybe a couple of few guys on the team that are like that. But, I mean, when you were playing, I mean, that was the entire trenches.
Everybody.
Both sides of the ball, everyone was loading up their backs from the squat rack. Everybody was punching the world. Now it's a lot more athleticism on both sides, but D linemen they're a lot more finesse now than they ever were. They do have some strength behind them, but the strength is predicated on their flexibility and their leverage and their angles, not necessarily what they're squatting. They're more Olympic style lifting, more explosion. It's just these guys they're playing the game differently now.
Incredible, man. I need to get back in there and see what see what it's like, because that's just I retired after the 2015 season, and the weight room was a massive element of most people's game back then. I mean, that, you know,
Not
what are we talking
anymore.
about? Yeah, not anymore.
Not anymore. Go
Just,
take a look at if y'all get a chance, take a look at Von Miller's his D-line summit. I don't know the name of it, but he has the D-lineman come down. Look at the drills they're doing. They're sharing knowledge. But these guys aren't lifting a ton of weights. It's all explosion. The footwork drills that they're doing is what skill guys are doing. They're doing the same type of ladders, same type of transitions, explosion-based workouts that you would see from a running back or receiver. And that's their job is to get after the quarterback now. They know Patrick Mahomes is going to drop back and throw it 50 times. They know Josh Allen's going to do the same thing. This league is a passing league, and that's why they're protecting quarterbacks, but also that's why they're paying guys a ton of money to go get them.
Jeff, before we move on, I'm just curious. Can you tell the difference in the run game now? So if you go in there, say Andy Reid scripts the first 15 plays and you got, 3 or 4 powers in there just as a changeup. Can you tell on those double teams that these guys aren't built like they used to be, or even
definitely, but it's not stagnant anymore. It used to be you get a double team, the guy for the most part is going to be a through technique. He's going to stay a through technique. Now, defensive coaches know their personnel. They know the guys they have in there, their strengths.
So they're
moving these guys. These guys are moving. There aren't any stationary targets as much as there used to be. But with that movement, gives you the opportunity to make a lot of big plays in the run game if you stick with it. That's why you see Derrick Henry over these last few years. Not to say he's not a great running back. He's one of the best of all time, in my opinion. But the league has changed, and it's not predicated on the run anymore, so there's more opportunity if you're going to be traditional in that way. Yeah. Guys aren't playing the run as stout as they were, so now he's getting to the second level or getting that open field a lot more than he would have back in the day.
I remember watching there was just on Twitter, this afternoon, watching was one of the criticisms of Trey. There was a play that he was in, and they were criticizing his block, and he had gotten knocked back in a run game and it threw some stuff off. But to your point, the D-line stemmed like within a millisecond before the thing was snapped. This guy went from a 4-eye down to like a 1 technique, or like a 2-eye. I was thinking, damn, I mean, like, yeah, you got to be able to play, but that's hard as hell. I mean, that's hard.
You got to think from our perspective. I appreciate you bringing that up. When a guy's not stationary, and for the most part pre-snap, because of Coach Heck, we know what's going on.
Right.
All right. But with all of that movement, it doesn't give you the ability to fire off the ball. Right. Because the guy's not standing in the same spot. So you have to keep your feet underneath you. And I wouldn't say it's hesitant, but there's more anticipation, and it's not as physical downhill as it would be if it was a goal line play or a short yardage play, where even in short yardage they're moving. Like everybody's moving all the time, but like it's not that strap them up, bang them out type of game that it used to be. There's a lot of moving around. There's a lot of thinking involved, and guys have to communicate just as much in the run game as they do the pass game because of the movement.
It's amazing, Jeff. It's like, I've seen it and we've talked about it, but just, I know you've actually done it, and hearing you talk about it, it's like, wow, I can't believe it's actually changed that much. I'm up here at the University of Maine, and I'll have the players come up to me and ask me about, what kind of stuff did you do? How did you get ready? Like, bro, you can't do what I did. Like I squatted heavy and took Vicodin. Like, that doesn't work now. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. It don't work like that now. Like, I got nothing for you. You gotta figure it out. Get fast. Unbelievable.
Do some yoga.
Do some yoga. And seriously, like, yoga was kind of like whatever. Now that's like a major deal. I can see why that'd be a big thing. All right, let's get into the Chargers game. But before we do that, one more word from our sponsor.
Hey, sorry to interrupt again, but I've got to tell you about our sponsor, Trade Coffee. And going to a coffee shop is a great experience, but it's not something most of us can do every day. If you're looking for that delicious local coffee shop taste on a daily basis, it's so much easier to get that with Trade Coffee. Trade Coffee is a coffee subscription service that makes it so easy for you to discover new coffees and make your best cup of coffee at home every day. No fancy equipment needed. It's wonderful. Whether you know what you're doing and you already know what kind of coffee you like, or you're looking and you need some help, Trade makes it easy and convenient to discover new coffees. They'll send you ground coffee or whole beans or however you make it your coffee at home. they will send it to you. It's absolutely perfect. It's a win-win in my book there. Here's how you got to do it. You're going to upgrade your coffee today with Trade Coffee and let them take the guesswork of finding your perfect cup. Right now, Trade is offering listeners a total of $30 off their subscription, plus free shipping at drinktrade.com/KCSN. That's drinktrade.com/KCSN for $30 off your subscription to the best coffees in the country. drinktrade.com/KCSN.
Wow. Once again, Tuck killed that ad once again.
Killing it.
And Jordan, Tuck's a natural at that. But like Jordan said, you're natural at cutting those ads, Mike.
Cutting to the edge, yeah.
Good job there, man.
Oh man, Tucker, he has me wanting to buy water and coffee, man.
Everything, man.
I want to give him a hug too. Yeah, hydrated, have some coffee. All right, brother. We got the Jaguars this week. Obviously, Doug Peterson trying to change things down there. The culture seems like they've been, getting in a better direction they have been in the past. Obviously, I love Doug. I know you do as well. Great guy. And the one thing that always worries me about these games, obviously the Jaguars aren't the opponent. Kansas City's clearly the better team in this game. There's no question about it. They were also the better team in the Indianapolis game, right? And I always get worried when you have a guy like Chris Ballard in Indy, you have a guy like Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, who they know the secret sauce.
Yes,
right? They know exactly how Andy Reid cooks things up. They know how he works. That always makes me more nervous than anybody else you can have on the field is a guy that knows how the secret sauce is made.
Yeah.
So, always the sort of normal, listen, you can't downplay them. This is the NFL. You got to go in there 100 miles an hour, make a statement. But at the same time, Big Jeff, you also got to be prepared that these guys are going to know they're going to have some idea on what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that makes me even more nervous than Ballard, who's a GM, who's not in those personnel meetings, who's not an offensive coordinator like Doug was for us. Mm-hmm. He's definitely going to know what we're doing. In fact, he's running the same offense in Jacksonville. He's using the same terminology. So defensively, they're going to know, some of the terms that we're using. So this is going to be a tough game from that standpoint. I think talent-wise, we are a better team. Yeah. But like you were saying, with the knowledge of knowing, tendencies and knowing not just tendencies, the characteristics of a guy, the intangibles of a guy, because you've been around him so much, you've learned under him. It's the teacher and the student per se. So I think it'll be tough from that standpoint, but Coach Reid always has something up his sleeve.
Always.
He knows you think you know what he's thinking. He's thinking a step ahead. So I think they're going to come out with a few wrinkles. I'm excited to see what they do offensively. Defensively, I think Jacksonville has done some good things offensively. They haven't been consistent, but they have shown some explosion, especially when Trevor Lawrence is clicking. He's not turning the ball over. Right. So we can't take him lightly on that side of the ball either. So it's going to be a competitive game, but I don't see us losing this one.
No. Especially the way things are rolling, the things are going. I mean, we're in that zone right now where things are just clicking. So, no, I'm with you. Before we go, though, I do want to ask you about the terminology as an offensive lineman. Obviously being a part of a number of different offenses with the whole sets of terminologies. When you're going into a game like this, and that defense might have a tip on, how you guys communicate, can you change and will you change how you guys communicate within sort of 5 days?
100%. We do it all the time, especially in protections. I'm not going to give up any code words now, but I know what they're using based off the TV audio to go left and right when they're sliding. So they're going to use a different word this week. Right. And that's really easy to pick up. That's not something you'll make a mistake. Usually, I can't even say. I don't want to give any defensive secrets or any offensive secrets so that people can pick up. But it's really easy to transition to a few different terms while still calling the same offense that would throw the opposing defense off that thinks they know. So like I said, they may think they know, but they may change something really small that you may not catch.
I remember playing in one game, and we were watching the TV copies and picking up on the verbal cues, and deuce was always a double team. Yeah. We go into the game, they called deuce. You know what it was? Trap.
Exactly. So and we know like offensively, we know teams are watching the TV copies. Right. We know they're trying to pick up on audio, and we do those self assessments throughout the year. And you can see it even with Pat. Like early in the year, he wasn't necessarily calling the Mike point
Right.
when he was running the ball, but he was leaving that to the center.
Mm.
Now he's calling the Mike at all times, and that's something that I noticed just because I'm looking at the game differently. But defenses look at the game that way, like, hey, when Pat's not calling the Mike, they're running the ball. That's some tendency that you pick up on. But now they did a self-eval, and they're like, hey, you got to start calling the Mike.
Yeah.
Or you got to start calling a pass call even when we run the ball. Make it look like you're sliding it, but we're running inside zone. So they're doing a lot of different things to keep the defense on their heels.
And a good timing, too. You got the bye week. So obviously the coaches are going to do that self-scout during bye week. So any of those other tendencies that they missed, they should have picked up during the bye week. Andy Reid's going to pick those up. All right, Big Jeff. Chiefs Kingdom, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you again next week after a big W. Jeff, love you, brother.
See you next week, man. Beat the Jaguars.